Alright boys, welcome back to another video. Knicks Daily here. Today we're going to be reacting to the Walker Kessler news. This was reported by Ian Begley that Utah is reportedly seeking a first-round pick for Walker Kessler. Quote, teams in touch with Utah say the Jazz are looking for at least a first-round pick in return for Kessler. And quote, the Knicks can't trade any more of their own first-round picks after dealing 4 of them to the Brooklyn Nets for Mikal Bridges. The Knicks do have 2 protected first-round picks in 2025 from the Detroit Pistons and Washington Wizards, though both seem unlikely to convey. And they can offer some pick swaps to Utah, but I don't think that's going to get it done. So to me, what this means is that if the Knicks do trade for Walker Kessler, they'd probably have to give up Miles McBride, because there's just no way that Utah is going to take some protected first round picks from garbage basketball teams for one of their most coveted young players, right? Would I be willing to give up Miles McBride for Walker Kessler? To be honest, I'd have to think more about it. At the top of my head right now, I would say yes, because I think there's more upside with Walker, as he's a 7-footer. He's 22, so he's only a year younger than McBride. But rebounding and rim protection are things that the Knicks prioritize, especially Coach Thibodeau. Isaiah Hartenstein, why do you think Tibbs liked him so much? Because he protected the rim and he rebounded the basketball. But Walker, he's a guy who he has the upside to be an all-star center in the league, right? I mean, he's also be able to contribute right now at 22. Miles McBride, he took a huge step. We know defensively what he brings. He can shoot the basketball, but he's not the best at playmaking. He's not the best at creating for himself. Walker would be a guy who's going to give the Knicks about 3 blocks a game. His per 36s are just absurd. To me, I really think I would do this. It would have to be McBride and a first-round pick. Maybe even a first-round pick and a swap or something like that. But looking at Kessler, 8.1 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.4 blocks. He shot 65.4% from the field in 64 games. And you have to remember that he wasn't even starting a lot of these games. Isaiah Hartenstein averaged 8.6 points, 9.1 boards, 3.2 assists, 1.1 steals, and 1.2 blocks. So essentially they have the same numbers. Isaiah was playing more minutes. And it's just night and day to me between these two guys. I mean, here's Kessler's per 36s, because I told you guys earlier they were insane. So we're looking at 12.5 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 3.7 blocks. Now, he's not going to play that many minutes because it just wouldn't make a lot of sense. The Knicks would still have Mitchell Robinson. But to get a guy behind Mitchell Robinson that is that freaking good, who's under contract through the end of the 2025-26 season with a cap hit of $2.9 million in 2024-25 and $4.9 million in 2025-26. I mean, that just doesn't happen. You don't find a guy that good and young making that little of money. You have to remember that the Knicks financially cannot afford a center making $12.5 million, especially making $22.5 million. They would have to trade Josh Hart or Dante DiVincenzo, and to get a guy making over $20 million, they'd have to trade Randall Brunson, Mikal Bridges, which certainly isn't on the table. It's just not realistic. This is the best case scenario for the Knicks. I think this would be the finishing piece to a championship run, because McBride is expendable. As much as I hate to say that, Tyler Kolek just signed the most guaranteed money for a second-round pick in the history of the NBA draft. He's a guy that could come in and run our second unit. Now, asking a rookie to do that is definitely a lot, but at the same time, he's built for this moment. The Knicks can also go out there and they could maybe get a Tyus Jones, or a cheaper option could be a Kyle Lowry, right, who certainly still has enough in the tank to be able to control the second unit. So the options are endless to me. Kessler's upside is through the roof. He allowed opponents to shoot just 46% last season. That was 12th among big men who appeared in over 50 games. He was 20th in the NBA in defensive BPM. We know Tibbs, like I said, prioritizes rim protection, and Kessler's rookie season was special. I mean, he made the first team all-rookie. He showed a lot of promise as a finisher on the basket, as a guy who could rebound, a guy that could protect the rim, and there's just not a lot of options to this point. Mo Wagner ended up re-signing with the Magic, so did Goga. Jonas Valanciunas went to the Wizards. Now, legitimately, we could be entering the season with Precious Achiuwa and Jericho Sims behind Mitchell Robinson. To me, that's not going to get it done. I think the Knicks should absolutely go and get Walker. I get that you don't want to have no first-round picks to your name, but at the same time, when you're all in, you've got to be all in. You can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door. If the Knicks have any chance, any way to get Walker Kessler, there's absolutely no reason that they should not be doing it, especially if they could get him for, like, to this point, I've talked myself into it, because Miles McBride's a guy that I don't think he's ever going to be a starting caliber guard for the Knicks. And that's not to even hate on him. It's just to say that we've got Mikal, we've got Dante, We've got Brunson, right? He's never starting over those guys. And yeah, the depth is certainly huge if there's an injury, but Walker Kessler could be a franchise center for the Knicks if he continues to develop. And Isaiah Hartenstein was a guy who came to the Knicks as a backup center at best, and he ended up walking out of here with $29 million annually from the Thunder. So if Tibbs is able to turn Hartenstein into that, imagine what he's able to turn in a guy like a Walker Kessler who already has insane upside. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. And Jericho Sims is our backup center right now, and he's just too raw. And I get comments from Knicks fans, they're like, he's 25 years old, how is he still raw to this point? Well, he's underdeveloped, right? He's a guy who has a lot of bounce, who can rebound, who can block shots, but he just doesn't have an offensive game, right? Like, Sims to me, I like, and for how little of money he makes, I'm cool with having him at the end of the roster. But in terms of actually coming in and starting games and even off the bench being able to keep the Knicks afloat, I just don't see a world where the Knicks are going to be able to win a championship with that. He's too inexperienced for me, even though, yeah, he started like 26, 27 games the past 2 seasons, but the Knicks were a 500 team during that. It wasn't like the Knicks were crushing it, so he's just a guy to get you by. And yeah, Mitchell Robinson, another thing is that he's played in just 66 games or more once in his career. I mean, Mitch has been in the league for what, 6 years, and he's only played in 66 games once. So that's not going to get it done. You can't rely on that, right? You simply can't. And Mitch, when he's healthy, has been an absolute force. I mean, the guy's the best offensive rebounder in basketball. He's a very good rim protector. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. So Walker Kessler is a guy that gives you a lot of flexibility financially, but also you can put him in over Mitch, and you probably wouldn't even be a worse basketball team. So, I mean, imagine Mitchell Robinson and Walker Kessler as our centers. That just doesn't make any sense. Another option is, Clint Capella. I'm going to save this for a different video, but Capella would be great for us because he's an elite rim protector, and he's also a great rebounder. Had a down season last year due to injuries, but he still was an above average defender. He's a good defender at that. So I think Capella could be an option, but again, he makes $22.3 million. So how do the Knicks pay that, right? Nikola Vucevic, a guy who wouldn't even be a good fit here anyway, because he's an offensive minded big. He's not a good defender, and he's making a ton of money. In terms of Wendell Carter Jr., it's the same thing as a guy like a Robert Williams, right? They both make about $12.5 million. The Knicks can't not take that on right now. So, like, the Knicks are already pretty hard capped, and that's without Brunson getting his new extension. That's without Randall getting his new extension. Mitchell Robinson, hopefully, right? So, like, right now we're looking at Walker Kessler. We're looking at Precious and Jericho Sims running it back with those guys, or Nick Richards, who again only is going to be making $5 million annually towards the cap, so the Knicks can take that on. He played in 67 games last year for the Hornets, started 51 of them, averaged 10, 8, and 1, shot 69% from the field, and he's only 26 years old. So, but Nick Richards is Nick Richards, right? He's not the best center in the world, he's not the worst. So yeah, the Knicks are getting a cheap option, but they're not getting a guy that's going to change the game for them. So it's up to really the front office. Do you want a game changer, or do you want a guy just to get it done, right? It depends how high they value Miles McBride. They were not willing to give him up for Mikal Bridges in the trade, which makes sense. Why the hell would you be trading 5 first-round picks and Miles McBride, right? It should never even been on the table. It wasn't on the table. I know a lot of Nets fans were like, oh, they're taking too long to get this done because they're getting Miles McBride. No, that was never on the table. It's just what the Nets wanted.